Hello everyone and welcome to the Becoming a Trustee webinar. My name is Beth and I'm joined by my lovely colleague Danielle. We're both partnership managers for the Trustee Recruitment Service, which is part of the Governors for Schools charity. During the course of this webinar, we're going to talk about what being a trustee involves, why you'd want to get involved, and of course, how you can sign up. So the Trustee Recruitment Service was established by Governors for Schools to meet Academy Trust needs in recruiting to their trust boards. Governors for Schools has been working in England for over 20 years now, and we work to improve education through effective governance. We know that having talented and committed volunteers active in board roles can really transform a school, and we work with trusts and schools to understand what they need in order to help them succeed. Academy Trust advisors on any specific skills or experience they need for their trust board, and we work really hard to find matches with our quality, high caliber volunteers, perhaps yourselves. During your time with us as a volunteer, we provide lots of support to help you develop your skills in the role and have the knowledge to succeed from the very beginning. We don't only aim to find volunteers with the right skills, but to ensure that boards are representative of the wider community, and we're really successful in engaging a broad range of skills. So just to introduce ourselves a little bit, as I said, my name is Beth. I've worked now for Governors for Schools for nearly a year, and I came into it with over 10 years of recruitment experience and marketing within the education sector. I've worked for universities, colleges and schools all over the UK, as well as internationally, and as a partnerships manager and an education advisor. So Danielle is just lurking. I will just let her introduce herself.
Hello, I am Danielle. I joined Governors for Schools following experience working as a governance professional in the education sector. So I've worked across different education institutions supporting governors and trustees.
So very much to toot our own horn, we are both very well positioned to match our volunteers with the perfect trust for them and to provide ongoing support. It's something we're both very passionate about, which is something I hope you'll see reflected in this presentation. We don't just see recruitment as a tick box exercise. Everything has to fit for all parties involved.
So what is a multi-academy trust? You might be familiar with maintained school structures. So on the left of that slide is a typical local authority maintained school. Usually it's one school run by a head teacher that's supported by a governing board. The governors hold the head teachers to account for the running of the school. On the right is a typical MAT structure for a multi-academy trust. It's not unusual for a multi-academy trust to retain that local authority structure for each of its individual schools. But under this structure, they are considered committees of the trust board. In an academy trust, schools are referred to as academies, and a multi-academy trust is a group of academies working together as one charity under one CEO and one board of trustees. As one organisation, trusts have the ability to share resources and expertise between their different academies. Trusts also usually have a central executive team. These staff usually work across key areas supporting all their different academies. So some key functions such as finance, HR and IT. The bigger the trust, usually the bigger the central team is that supports with the running of the trust. As you can see in the diagram on the right, trust boards also often have additional subcommittees like finance, curriculum and audit.
So what actually is a trustee? In governance structure terms, trustees sit at executive board level and they're responsible for all of the schools in an academy trust, as compared to governors who are responsible for individual schools, also like committees reporting to the board. It's often described being as trustee as an eyes-on, hands-off role or being a critical friend. They challenge the executive board and hold the trust to account for all of its decision-making. This is also similar to a governor role, but a trustee would be challenging the executive of the trust, so senior leadership, CEO, as opposed to a head teacher of an individual school. So you do need to be very confident with experience of strategic leadership to take on this role. Trusts can be small, they can be 1 to 3 schools, or huge with 40 plus schools. This means their budgets really can range as well, from 5 million to in excess of 100 million. And this funding is delivered directly from the government rather than through the local authority like schools, meaning trusts needs to ensure transparency around their management and effective use of finances, which is where trustees come in. The external skills from the business sector, you guys, are really useful as educationalists, so head teachers, have probably never been required to manage multi-million-pound budgets before, but this is something that's commonplace in a corporate setting. It's a tripartite role, we like to say. You're working against three different backdrops, so school improvement, charity law, and company law. So this means, as well as being a trustee, you're operating as a director of a company, meaning you would be listed on Companies House and subject to company law. We're going to go into that a little bit later. So there is some responsibility for you to consider. It's really not a light undertaking.
So what makes a good trustee? Here are a number of attributes that are common in a good trustee. A good trustee is someone who acts as a champion for the trust's academies, staff, and pupils. It's somebody who can be an objective, critical friend and hold trust leaders to account. It's someone who's committed. It's important that you consider if you can commit to the role, because you as a trustee, as part of the trust board, are an integral part of the trust leadership and management team. Trustees also need to uphold the 7 Nolan principles of public life. The Nolan principles are the ethical standards expected of everybody who holds any type of public office role. So why become a trustee? What's the benefit for you? There are a range of reasons that people become a trustee in an academy trust. Every trust is slightly different, just like schools. You might find that it's a particular ethos that draws you to a trust. Here are some of the other reasons that people become academy trustees: to develop experience working at executive board level, and even to give back using their existing skills and experience to help improve education and raise pupils' aspirations.
So why do we actually need trustees? There are 2,397 school academy trusts as of August 2023, funded by the DfE in England. Trustees are more likely to be named John or David than be between 18 to 30, a person of colour, LGBTQ+, disabled, or have relevant lived experience. Not that there's anything wrong with the names John or David, it's just that trust boards do need more variety of life to function very well in general. Fewer than 3% of trustees are under 30. Meanwhile, 92% of trustees are white, over 50, and above average income and education. 90% of trustees are recruited by word of mouth and existing networks, and too often becoming a trustee is about who you know. Those stats were all taken from www.gettingonboard for their Why We campaign, and really highlight why a more diverse board is needed and the work we do to help with that. Part of good governance is discussion, scrutiny, and thorough decision making, which is much less likely to occur if the majority of a board members are linked through prior friendships, similar backgrounds, or shared perspectives. You can see that with an absence of diversity, boards can fall prey to groupthink, unconscious bias, and unilateral decision making, which leads us on to trust responsibilities. Trustees enable their trust to run effectively and provide excellent education for children. They have 3 core responsibilities. The first, planning the strategic direction of the trust, so there's a clear vision in line with the trust ethos. The second, overseeing the financial management of the trust and ensuring its money is well spent and appropriately accounted for. And thirdly, holding senior leaders to account for the educational performance of the school and the outcomes of the trust. You can find all about that in the Academy Trust Handbook, which we can send to you if you would like. A few more responsibilities. I told you it's a big role. As a trustee, you play a key role in setting the vision for the trust and helping the senior leadership team to think about how that builds into all areas. Is the vision ambitious for every child? What's in place to make that happen? How does the trust maintain and embed its ethos and values throughout all of its academies? Remember, there can be up over 40 of those. How will you monitor progress against the trust strategic plan? And what processes are in place to support and monitor each academy? All of these areas require a range of skills, and your expertise can make a real difference with that. That's why we do this work. An educationalist, for example, can help to ask questions and build a strong approach around areas like curriculum and pedagogy. Someone with financial expertise helps the trust to budget effectively and deliver a sustainable future for all of the schools within the trust. Someone with marketing expertise could help consider if the trust is being presented in the best light and how students can be proud of where they attend. And someone with community knowledge can contribute a deeper consideration of local issues. Those are just some skill areas we look for in our trustees, but we're really taking on applications from all areas of the business world. They're all important. It's not just a figurehead role. There will be lots of reading and preparation and research to be undertaken before each meeting to make sure you're fulfilling your responsibilities.
So the financial responsibilities. Financial management is a very important responsibility. Trustees make sure that the trust is effectively using its money and ensure that the trust and its academies are financially stable. On the slide are a few questions that trustees might want to consider while reviewing finance papers ahead of a board meeting. And then finally, responsibilities around accountability. As independent volunteers, trustees create accountability for trust leaders. I won't read through all of the things on the slide, but a few things that trustees hold leaders accountable for are ensuring that all pupils in the trust are supported in achieving their best outcomes, so both academic and beyond, and making sure that the vision and values of the trust are reflected in every decision and discussion that happens. A trust might have other priorities that trustees also need to hold leaders accountable for.
There are also levels of commitment to consider before applying for a trustee role. Hopefully we're not scaring you off too much. We just want to make it clear what kind of a commitment it is. So in terms of your time, on average, we estimate the role approximately 8 hours per month of your time. This includes meetings, preparing for the meetings, and any ad hoc things you might need to do. It really can vary from trust to trust, and as with any role, there are key points in the year that are going to be busier than others. Trust boards meet around 6 times a year, and sometimes you might also be asked to join a subcommittee, which might be another 4 to 6 meetings over the year. But this will all be made clear to you when the trust vacancies are sent to you. As part of our application process, we always share that with you, and we outline the requirements for each specific role because they do all vary quite slightly. In terms of term of office, this is usually for 4 years, so it's best to consider the role as a long term and think about that before you're signing up. It's pro bono and voluntary as well.
So travel. When you apply, you can tell us how far you're happy to travel. Obviously, the further you can travel, the larger the area is that we can find vacancies for you. Like we said, it's an important role, so it's important to be realistic about how far you're happy to travel. Some trusts will also support remote or hybrid meetings. And finally, the scary one, liability. The trust board is a collective entity that supports the trust. So any decisions that are made are a collective decision. So there is shared liability. There can be misconceptions around personal liability. So our advice and guidance is that as long as you're acting genuinely with honest intentions or motives in the interest of the trust, then there's nothing to worry about around liability. Every trust will have a governance professional who can advise on the matter, and you can also find out more about it in the Academy Trust Handbook on the government website.
So hopefully we haven't scared you off with all those responsibilities and commitments. It is a big undertaking, as you'll be aware, but it's a fantastic step in your career and in improving the educational outcomes of thousands of children. Good governance is about being open to being challenged, and that's what our trustees are really excellent at. So in terms of next steps, you would submit your application and our partnership managers would review it. That's going to be myself and Danielle. We would then put you in touch with one of our expert advisors who would have a chat with you about the role of trustees and what your work experience history has been. It's a very nice informal chat just to make sure we know as much about you as possible to help trusts see your amazing talents and skills. There will then we'll let you know when we have a match for your profile. This can happen quickly or it can take a while. It really depends on what vacancies we have and the skill matching we're able to do. We would then share your application with the trust. We wait to hear from them whether they want to interview you. Most of the time they do. We're very successful at matching. So we then introduce you to the trust and they take you through their recruitment process, which often will start with an interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch this webinar. We hope it's given you food for thought or encouraged you to go ahead and make an application. You can apply online at www.trusteerecruitmentservice.org.uk, or if you have any questions before you do that, please do feel free to drop Danielle and myself an email at trusteerecruitment@governorsforschools.org.uk. Thank you so much. We hope to hear from you soon.